Thank you very much, Todd. Our next speaker is Craig Stevens. Craig is a neighbor to our south. He's a landowner from Pennsylvania. Craig has a gas lease. He's also had extensive experiences with the gas industry and the regulatory agencies in Pennsylvania. He's devoted time to helping other people who've had problems with gas drilling. We're fortunate to have Craig here tonight. He has a really busy schedule these days. In fact, I understand tomorrow he's heading down to Washington with a group that's going to be talking to congressmen and others on the sort of national implications of hydrofracking. So, with no further ado, Craig, the floor is yours. Have this, but I think you don't want it, right?
Good evening, folks. As usual, I'm Craig Stevens, Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania. Actually, my mom's from Oswego, New York, not too far from here. Got 4 generations buried on the Oswego River there. I'm a 5th generation New Yorker. I'm a 6th generation property owner in Pennsylvania, but I was born in California and spent the first 46 years of my life there. So this is all new to me too, just like it is to you guys finding out. But I'm a conservative. I grew up in Orange County, California, which was at one time the most conservative county in the United States. And I got interested in Second Amendment. I'm real interested in the Constitution. I carry it around with me all the time. So my dad was real big into firearms and training us safe usage. So I got involved. I was an NRA recruiter for 20 years. I got the #1 recruiter promoter in the world for the NRA in 97, 98, 99, and 2000. All 4 times got the awards from Charlton Heston himself. So if you're here and you're interested in having natural gas drilling come to New York, I can respect that. I thought the same way when I moved to my ancestral property back in 2010. That's when I moved here. I moved to Virginia when my dad got sick in 2006. Lived there for 4 years. He passed away. Nobody was living in the ancestral home. I took it over and bought it, and now I'm fixing it up. But in the middle of that, I move in, and there's all kinds of excitement and activity going on. I'm going to cover a few things here. Okay, on the list I have is the pollution side. I'm going to start with the first part and then work my way back to some things, but I had a few questions when I moved to Pennsylvania. Like I'd heard about, there was some water contamination issues going on nearby. Dimmock is 15 miles from me, from where I live in Silver Lake Township, south from me. And all my neighbors had signed up. I mean, I would say 90% of our large property owning neighbors had leases already. And that was interesting to me. I didn't mind. I have a shared interest in a 150-acre family property, very small, 1/9 interest. The house now, my brother and sister and I own outright, and it's a little tiny piece of property. So I had an interest in finding out about it. Being conservative, I thought this is great. I love to fly in airplanes, drive cars, do all kinds of stuff that burns gasoline, uses oil, and everything else. But I don't mind solar and wind and all that either. I grew up in California, there's a lot of it up there. So I was kind of interested and open-minded. I went to Dimmock after my neighbors told me that everybody was lying over there. I said, lying about what? Well, they're claiming their water's contaminated. Really, what we think is they want to get a big lawsuit against the companies and get a lot of money. And I thought, okay, what are you interested in getting out of the gas industry coming to your property? Well, a lot of money. Okay, well, that sounds about right. We're all on the same page then. People wanted to come for reasons like energy independence. Here's something you want to look at. Google list of the harmed. That is simply about 1,200 plus people all over the country, 40 different states represented. These are newspaper accounts or TV accounts where you can click on a link and it'll show you the TV story. Alaska to Pennsylvania to Louisiana to Texas to Colorado. There's 40 states in here, and it's weird. All of them, when you read them, about 80% of them are the same. One day my water was clear, because why would you live at your property if your water was already damaged? That was the big thing. The water in Dimmock's been bad forever. Why would people live there? If your water was bad and you want to shower in it, why would you purposely live there and expose yourself to it? The common story is my water turned black or brown. This is an example of brown water from Dimmock. There's some people that didn't turn brown, stayed clear. That you find out about when you take a shower or bath or anything. that it can get contact on your skin. So I went down to find out, and I found out there was a lot of people that had pretty compelling stories. They had documentation. They had everything. So I encourage you, if you're trying to educate yourself, I never buy anybody's story. I grew up in California. Every salesman in the world comes there to sell people electric dog polishers and fun things like that. If you want to learn about pipelines and how safe they are, because you're getting a lot of them here, just because you're not drilling here doesn't mean they don't want to run pipelines through. Just Google list of pipeline accidents in the United States, right here. Hundreds come up. That's just since 1890s all the way up to 2000. Then if you just put in the words 21st century, you get the last 13 years. There's over 300 on this list alone. And that was just the last year. Anything ranging from small accidents to explosions, fires, deaths, loosening of oil coming out, flooding communities, getting into water. So they're not as innocuous as we'd like to think either. One of Google fatalities in the energy fields, 2000 to 2006 right there. A lot of the guys that are working are dying. I mean, they're getting sick and dying. A lot of people do. Not an exorbitant amount, but enough that I would be concerned working near what's going on. That's from earlier. That's the USGS. It shows our aquifers in northeastern Pennsylvania. They're not unlike the Finger Lakes here. It's pretty close. There's our Susquehanna County. You can run on the Susquehanna County website. That's the hazard mitigation plan for 2012. That was released just this year. It was completed last October, but they didn't release it to us, the public, until about February this year. And I was interested when I started reading it. It's 212 pages long, but the only thing I've included right here is the amount that mentions gas drilling and other related activity. Look how thick that is. That's about 40% of the total document. 5 years ago, when they did the 2007 one of these, it didn't exist even talking about gas drilling in the document. So that much was added. None of it's very favorable if you read this. This is not a bipartisan or partisan document. Every community in our county had a say in putting this together. They wanted to know their concerns, road issues, all kinds of things. These were not things they didn't want to come there. These are responding, reacting to things that were already happening. If you want to know why I'm not very happy with my elected officials, that's why I'm going to DC tomorrow. Just look at fracking and the revolving door in Pennsylvania. There are over 50 elected people listed in this, including our 5 former governors and the 6 former heads of the DEP, secretaries of the DEP. The rest are related, undersecretaries. They all work in the industry or for the industry now. So what I looked at that is, I like politics, I'm real interested in politics. When you get into politics so that you can better your position later when you're either voted out or your term limited out, and then you're going to go to work for an industry that you were supposed to be protecting the constituents that you swore an oath to do, I have a little bit of a problem with that. I think almost they should have like a year or 2 grace period where you leave and you can't go working for somebody who directly oversaw that. That's just fair to the people you're representing. Or else recuse themselves from voting about it. The main focus that I want to cover is being a conservative and moving to what I thought was a real conservative area. A lot of churches, I think there's over 100 churches just within a 10-mile radius of mine. I don't go to church every week. My mom did, she was Catholic, my dad did not. But I have read this book a few times, the Bible, and it doesn't speak very highly of money in it. I don't know if anybody's noticed that before, but there's not a real, when you call things mammon and you say it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. So chasing money has never been my life's goal. I love to have money, I love to buy nice things, take care of my kids. That's never been my issue. What I couldn't jive was the United States Constitution and the Pennsylvania Constitution and what was happening to us. I don't care whether you go to Dimmitt, where there was multiple water wells. It went from, I think, 33 down to 19 were in a lawsuit, and 7 people settled early. Then there was 12 that were holding out, waiting to get their water back. That's what was interesting. Everybody told me they just wanted their clean water back like it was when they moved there. As clean as it was, let's say there was some small problem with water they could tolerate, but not when it turns brown or has odors or you get rashes when you use it. So we've covered there are some problems because the industry's pat answer, including the last 2 movies on the pro side, One was from Shelley Depew, that's my neighbor. She did Truth Land. Shelley had, I think, 4 well casing failures on her property, on her own drilling and on her own property, but she didn't mention that to anybody in the movie, so I asked her about that. Then you have Frack Nation. That's a 77-minute long movie that you can't find 1 minute of negative in the entire thing. If he was looking for the truth, I was present while he interviewed a family in Demick. And multiple families he did. I think he did 5 or 6 interviews, 3 to 4 hours in length each. That's 15 or 20 hours of film. Like a minute or 2 is used in the entire film. I think that's pretty disingenuous. If you're going to follow anybody that's in the middle looking for answers, make sure that they show both sides of it. Because I watched it, I have it on my DVR. That doesn't mean it's on my to-watch list every day either. We're going to cover here also issues that are coming up. Like you heard earlier, he showed the slide. Last Tuesday we had a compressor station called the Central HP in Brooklyn Township, Pennsylvania. It's about 15 miles south of me. It went, I'll quote the first responder in the video. Somebody filmed talking to the first responder. He said it went kablooey. Okay? Kablooey. That doesn't mean a flash fire doesn't go kablooey. It went kablooey. Things rattled. There was 2 homes nearby. Both are very pro-drilling families, right near it, the closest ones. The one lady was scared as Mrs. Kowalski, I think, or Kozaleski. I can't remember exactly the last name. I've got it in here somewhere. But she completely was upset. Number one, the first responders came in silent. Not a siren on. It was 11 o'clock at night. Now, that would concern me. My dad was in the Civil Air Patrol for 63 years. He was an emergency management specialist. He was actually offered the job, second phone call from Tom Ridge when they started Homeland Security. So growing up with a guy, we had water everywhere, food, and supplies, and guns to keep it, the whole thing. And so I'm wondering why they came in silent. None of the neighbors knew. They just saw a flashing light go zooming by. And this building, I got to go the next day. All 4 walls were bowed out. The roof had singe marks all the way around it. Thank God, I heard there was 11 people on site and nobody was injured. And I'm thankful of that. There's no reason that the workers should, be harmed if there's a mistake made or a problem. But Williams owns that compressor station. Well, back in March last year, they had the Lathrop station in Springville. It butts right up to Demick. That one went kablooey. And that one had, I think, 8 responding units from all over the place. The one the other night had 6 responding units come. But they also had one in Windsor, New York, last July. They were releasing raw methane in a lightning storm, and it hit the gas that was in the air. There was a giant fireball. I don't believe the structure itself was damaged, but I think 6 or 8 groups of first responders came from 6 or 8 communities on that one. My concern is in 14 months, one company, Williams, has 3 explosions or fires or some lighting of released natural gas. And it's an average of 1 every 4.5 months. And they're telling me, yeah, we do it all the time, everything's safe, we'll put it right in your backyard, you won't even know we're here. Boom! Come on, guys. And I don't live near any of them yet, but next door to me in Forest Lake, they want to put 5 in one community. 5. I have a pipeline across my property. I have a gas lease with Chesapeake. Well, not as of this week. Now it's with Southwestern, if you didn't read that one. But Southwestern bought out Chesapeake in our area, making 152,000 acres for $93 million. And anybody know what that's called? A fire sale. $547 an acre average. You know how much they paid me 2 years ago? $4,000 an acre. Now they just sold it to Southwestern for $547 average. You know how much Williams paid to buy out Alta about 2.5 years ago? $12,000 an acre. 547. So if I'm putting my businessman hat on and forgetting about being a pro-drilling activist or an anti-drilling activist, which is what they like to peg me as, I wish I was, but I'm just a realist and a conservative, meaning conservation. I wanted to know why $12,000 an acre Williams paid for my neighbor's leases, down to $4,000 they gave me, down to $500 just 1.5 or 2 years later. What's going on, guys? as a businessman, if you own a big piece of property here, be cautious what you're asking for. I wouldn't want them to rush here. The price is down around $3.50 a thousand. It was around $14 a thousand not too long ago. And that was before the apartment started putting production costs in. Chesapeake started out charging 4 to 5% on your production costs once you were getting a royalty check. 4 to 5. You know what the people were suing them about just before they sold to Southwestern? 40 to 50% production costs. 3 or 4 years later. So your check's up here, and then after a year it drops down because the gas is coming out of the ground, and then it drops down again, and then Chesapeake's not making any money, and I won't just pick on them because a lot of them do it. Then all of a sudden they eat up the rest of what you got left with big giant production costs because they're losing money. Even funnier is when Chesapeake started their own company called CEMI, C-E-M-I, and they were buying the gas from you, the landowning partner, us, and Chesapeake itself for $1 a thousand, and then reselling it to the transportation people. I don't know about you, but if I sign a contract, which I did, to be a 20% royalty interest partner with the company that was going to take the gas out, and by the way, when they come to, if you haven't signed a lease yet or been courted, hey man, they're going to make you rich, and you're going to get everything you ever wanted, and they're going to be here forever with you, right standing beside you. As soon as the lease was signed, originally in 2007 on our property, a year and a few months later, they sold a third interest to Statoil. Who here wants to drill a well and bring a soldier home? Okay? Well, it's not going to work because they sold 1/3 of the interest of all their leases to Statoil, which is a Norwegian, which is the country of Norway, not a Norwegian company. Wait a minute. So a foreign country owns 1/3 of my mineral rights underneath my property. I own 20%. Who's got the good deal on that one? Chesapeake's 46% left. They just sold us Southwestern for a fire sale loss. And we're hearing nobody's going to come and drill. Because Southwestern has to figure out how to pay that $93 million before they're going to start spending money. I have plenty of evidence here. I have a big stack of demic information, and I don't care to tell the story as far as knowing what it's like to live with problems like that. I don't. My water is still fairly okay. But I can tell you I've got 3 consent orders here, 2 of them signed by the CEO of Cabot saying he was guilty of contaminating the water. I've also got pre-drill tests from people here that show that there was no contamination or no methane in the water beforehand. So if you want to actually find out about this before you invite it into your neighborhood, I'd recommend you do a little research. Because the industry's pat answer of no problems. I don't know, anybody here ever buy a used car? And you go and check it out, it's awesome. It's beautiful. And then the guy tells you, hey, no accidents, the old grandma drove it to church only. There's no problems with it. You're saying, why are you selling it? In other words, there's always problems with something. There always is. You can guarantee there's a problem, right? Even brain surgeons have problems, and people that do something every day have problems. To say there's no problems, or to try to minimize the problems by saying it's an anomaly, well, when you start having 1,200 different cases showing up around the country, just do yourself a favor. Even if you're totally for this, research it. Find out what you're inviting here. Here's my side here, that Franklin Forks is near me. There's Franklin Forks. The DEP just sent out a notification that said it wasn't related to gas drilling. That's interesting. What was it related to? They don't know. They don't say in the determination letter there's no problem. The barium is super high, they've got manganese, turbidity, all these things, all these problems. They agree with that. But they say that gas drilling activity did not cause the problem. Then we ask what did? I don't know. Well, if you have a determination that something did not cause a problem, you better know what did, otherwise you're guessing too. That's our feeling. It didn't help. You were just told about the story that came out by Laura Legier. Scranton Times-Tribune just this Sunday ran a huge story, and that's part 1. In December of 2011, they did a right to know for the state DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. We call them Don't Expect Protection, because that's about what we get. And I wish that was a joke, but it's really, nobody's interested in helping. So many of the people that I know that have had water problems have had no help from the DEP, especially in the last couple of years. But, so she did a right to know, the paper did, very large one. And they had to sue the DEP to get the information released. It took 1 year, from December to December, to get the information released. It's not available on their cool website, because you'll hear it from the pro-drilling people. They got a website, you can check everything out. Maybe Shelley DePue should have checked out her own site on her own property to find out there was well casing failures. That's all I had to do. But what they don't do is talk about determination letters when there's a problem. Here's the other thing I didn't like. There was at least 19 homes with affected water in Dimmitt, and even more than that. You know, this right to know they just did shows one incident for the entire community. One that includes 18. It's like a MIRV, you know what that is? Multiple independent reentry vehicle. That's when they launch on you, it splits open and then you're dealing with 5 or 10. In other words, I'm not understanding why each individual, going back to the Constitution, each individual person has rights. Why you wouldn't be treated as an individual? Why it's like a group? Same thing in 161 guaranteed. It says in the document, your private water well has been found to be negatively affected by gas drilling activity in your area. That's the DEP, folks. They're the ones we can't get to even come out, but they had to say yes, but they didn't want to release the documents. Now we know why. A map is on that same site. You just Google Laura Legere, Scranton Times-Tribune. It's just from Sunday, and there's more coming. Read about it and find out. Hopefully the DEC will get it better here, but I'm looking at their staffing and how much money the state of New York has, which is like zero. You guys are already taxed enough for whatever's going on, it looks like. But how are you going to protect them? Let's get into farming. Here's PASA, Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture. I found out about them when I went to Farm Aid. I'd never been to Farm Aid, but it was in Hershey, Pennsylvania last year. So I drove down, got a ticket. It was really fun. But I went to a symposium called Shale Grass Extraction and the Family Farm that they did the day before on Friday. Very interesting. Here's PASA, who basically, they were the sponsors of the entire event, the main sponsor. PASA asserts its position in favor of a moratorium on unconventional gas extraction until it is determined that this practice will not impair the ability of farmers to profitably produce healthy food while respecting Pennsylvania's air quality, water resources, and natural environment. There's 6,000 members, farmers, in this group. What's even more interesting is the fact that I tried to find out about water safety on farms near me that produce milk and eggs. I called the DEP. They said they don't oversee that. It's the Ag Department. Called the Ag Department, and it's the Health Department. Called the Health Department. It's back to DEP. It was like playing a child's game, moving the piece around the board. And what I found out was they don't want to know. So if you're buying anything coming up from food-wise from Pennsylvania, milk, eggs, meat, or poultry, I just say no until the DEP is willing to get some heavy-duty testing done. Because I don't know about you, but I don't care. Pro, anti, it's not my business to tell you what to do with your own private property. That's your property. What you can't do, refer back to the rule book. The rule book says you can live your life happily on your own property, in your own communities, unless what you're doing on your private property kind of sneaks over and affects your neighbor. Any negative effect on your neighbor, guess who your neighbor is allowed to come after? It's not going to be the big bad gas industry, gas company, because they got all the money. They're probably going to come after you too, because you're a partner. I noticed that. We're partners with them, so you can get screwed right along with them. Bradford County has a bunch of mechanic liens. Anybody heard of a mechanic lien before? When somebody does your roof job on your house and you pay them partial, you pay them half and then they don't finish it and leave, so you want your money back because they didn't finish the job. Well, a bunch of the people that work for the gas industry, their contractors, got stiffed on their pay. At one time I heard Chesapeake for the last couple of years was net 6 months, net 180. And then they just went, forget it, I'm not going to pay it. So when they don't, they just put a lien on your property. So go and try to get a loan. As a farmer, you need a loan to get equipment because you're going to have your crop come later on down the road. You can't. They say, hey, you got a lien on your property for $200,000. Good luck with getting a loan on that before you pay it. It wasn't, I didn't stiff anybody. I show you as a 15% partner on the property with them, so since they're not paying, they're going to come after you. It's your property. If you want the lien lifted, go ahead and do it. I don't think they told many people about that. We just found out about that recently. Here's a good one. Did anybody see the National Geographic in March? There's it right there. Big flame on the front. Has nothing to do with New York or Pennsylvania. That's North Dakota mostly talked about in there. 32 pages, only 10 pages of text. The rest are really cool pictures if you didn't see it. But most interesting is, see the big flame on the front? That's what they're doing to the methane in North Dakota. burning it. They're not capturing one iota of it. You know why? Because you can't, they're going after the oil. You can't truck natural gas. You have to put a pipeline in. You can truck oil. It'll just wait there until you suck it up and put it in the truck. But when gas comes rushing out, you either have to cap it and hold it back, or you have to put it in something that will carry it, pipelines. I was interested to find that out. As a landowner with a lease, if it's so valuable to all of you and you're waiting for your payday, spike the football payday, they're just burning it. If this is worth something, why are they lighting it on fire and cooking it? Because it's valueless to them. Plus, there's a little problem. I didn't drive the price down by being an anti-drilling activist. And you can't drive the price up or down being a pro-drilling activist wanting it to come to your property. That's all on the industry. They overproduce, guys. They've overproduced so much, they've driven the value of what's underneath your ground into the toilet. If this was your gold reserves in your bank, you'd be upset. There's another thing too, methane. Methane is interesting. The big tout now by the industry is we're getting that CO2 level down, the lowest it's been in recording in the last, I guess, 50 years. Phenomenal. CO2's down. Did you look at what the methane is? Well, why would I do that? Because if you talk to any scientist on either side, even Terry Ingill, the father of Marcellus Shale, will tell you methane is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. Of course, we breathe out CO2. All living things breathe out CO2. So why am I concerned about that? Because they want to capture it, because they want to get paid for it. Well, the industry average, if you look it up, is they lose from when they drill the hole in the ground to when they get it to the source that's going to use it, like your kitchen stove, they lose 30% in the process of extraction and transmission. 30%. Now let's go back to the gold bar equation. If your gold mine is producing gold, and they put it in the truck, and they're taking it down to the bank for you, and 30% of it falls off, I'm not interested in a business deal with somebody that can't. So tighten it up, guys. Make sure you're capturing all of it. That's our money, baby. Right? That's why they pay you at the wellhead. So you have no interest in what happens after the wellhead. Like, who knows here how many liquefied natural gas, outbound liquefied natural gas plants they have with permits that are working on getting them built or want to get approval in the United States. 20 right now. 2-0. Hear the sucking sound? That's where it's all going. It's not staying here. Why would you say that? Because I am a businessman. And when your shareholders of your corporation want to make money, they're not going to let you sell it at the wellhead for $3.50, and that's the end of the process. They want the most money they can get from their investment, right? Who's investing? China, India, Russia, Norway, Japan. China and Russia. Are they our friends? I don't know. Some people might think they are. I don't really care to do business with them, but that's me. So we're going to send it all overseas. Well, some people say there's no problem with that. Hey, great, it'll boost the economy, we can export, make some money. You're not going to make any money. You got paid, you're the lowest paid person in the totem pole. Because remember, gas lease pipeline, I'm interested in what can be made from this. I'm not going to tear up the checks. I mean, I don't think anybody did that signed, even the ones that signed originally are going to tear up the checks coming. Why? Well, okay, that's my property. It's coming. You had to come and pay me to extract it, to bring it out, and you have to pay me my portion. Then why would I want you to drive the price down or pay me? My dad used to say, throw nickels around like manhole covers. That means I'm taking a nickel and making it seem really big. Nickels aren't very big. They're keeping the dollars and we're keeping the nickels. So at the very least, learn what's happening and make sure there's only one way they're going to bring the price back up. Shut the valves off. Anybody want to know why they're not going to do that? Two, first their shareholders will be upset. Secondly, most of them are in heavy debt. Chesapeake's in massive debt. I think they said $6 billion. So they're selling all their assets off to get money. Anybody here that's pro that wants to argue with that, go ahead, just Google Chesapeake. They're having a fire sale, selling everything off to get money. But so they can't afford to not drill new wells and get new production. Because without it, they can't service their own debt, which means they go up to business. Who's the biggest energy provider and extractor on the planet? OPEC. OPEC, correct? We bow to OPEC every time we fill up at the gas station. We know that. So who do you think's going to buy up all this mess when these companies can't afford to keep extracting? Because it costs about $5 million to drill one well. One well. 4 to 6 million gallons of water, you heard him earlier, but it costs about $5 million. Right now, they're not even at break even. They're at $3.50 a thousand. It needs to get closer to $4.50 or $5. That's what they're telling us, to even break even. Why do they do this at a loss? Just shut it down. Let's wait for the price to come up. It's going to be 2 years before any export's going to go on, really a lot of export. But they're going to convince all of us to do what? Convert our cars, convert our buses, convert our buildings, convert everything to natural gas, while the price is nice and low. You know how drug dealers work? They give you the first couple of hits for free until you're like, I'm jonesing for it. And now I come to get it and they go, yeah, that's $100. What? Yeah, go steal a car, go do whatever you need to do, get the money. So my concern is the price has gone from here to the toilet. It's very low now. So now it's very appealing to convert everything until they start exporting it. And then the price is going to come up. All it has to do is less than double the wellhead price. And every dollar you invested in converting your vehicle, your buildings, or any infrastructure, now you're at a loss. You're not getting the money back because they're selling you right now on the savings, the per gallon equivalent savings. So there's the key. Let's see where we're at here. Who's on doing the time? Anybody in particular? Just wave me down. Okay. There's a problem. It seems like I know who's going to win, and it's probably not going to be us. And if you're a farmer around anywhere, I'm the first generation. My brother and sister and I and my cousins that aren't farmers, but in Pennsylvania, the 5 generations before me on the property I live on were dairy farmers. They had a 500-acre farm. They cared about the land, we know that, everybody does. If you live on land, you care about it. If you have animals, you care about them. I mean, and the shocking thing is the disregard for and respect for people. I'm going to finish up with this. You go to Demick when you first move here and you meet some really awesome people. I consider the bravest people I've ever met before because they're facing a giant industry who's telling them they're lying and they're in it for the money. And I watched the entire community turn their back, their own community, on them. Even community in Montrose, which isn't even near Demick, turn their back, run ads, and call people liars. But I'm wondering myself, why would anybody do that? Because if you don't know it, 12 major businesses have been closed in the Montrose area just in the last year and a half. I mean, the printing company closed. They've been around for 180 years. PJ's Bar and Grill, the bars, you're hearing all these jobs are coming, all these workers are going to come, they're going to load up the bars, load up the restaurants. If you own rental property, you're going to be rich. Come to Montrose area and look at the for sale signs. I've never seen anything like it. I've only lived there 3 years and everything is for sale. Nobody wants to live there. Why? Because there's a 400 trucks a day going across front of my house. So if you want to come down and see what's going on, we highly encourage it. I encourage you to do a rig tour. Go and see how the other half lives, then come and see people that have been negatively affected, and be an adult and make up your own mind. Make up your mind by seeing it firsthand. So, I'm going to do a couple things here. We're talking about damaging people's lives and not taking responsibility for it. The DEP is good at it. Federal government will check out. When you call the EPA, they say, is this about oil and gas? Yep. Thanks. They check right out and hang the phone up. Because they have no authority, because they were, there's not an exemption, they just put it all in the state's hands. There's an ad in the local paper about running a pipeline to make the people in Demick whole again. Give $12 million water pipeline that the state gave a loan to Pennsylvania American Water, the state public utility, to run a water line out there. And this is their neighbors, full-page ad in the Penny Saver, the Mulligan, that says, enough already. You're not getting a water line. We're not spending the money. You don't have to spend it. The state already gave the money to the people to do it. There's the note. How'd you like to drive to your house that has a water buffalo, which has delivered water for 2.5 years, paid for by who? Cabot. You know how much they were charging per delivery to top off? $100 a delivery every day. Anybody here got a spare $3,000 a month in their pocket to pay for water to get delivered to their house? They used to come out of the ground magically for free. Maybe you had to spend a few pennies a day on the pump to bring it up. I saw that and I was shocked. And those aren't cheap signs. Those are two-sided, full-color signs. I don't think any little local group did that. We heard Joe Massaro, who represents Energy in Depth, was at a meeting over Brooklyn Township that I was at. We have him on film. He's being asked by the lady that was having the meeting, hey, we want our signs. Where's our signs? Because Dennett got their signs. Those are those signs. And Franklin Forks got Franklin Citizens for Truth signs. And he said, well, we don't handle that. That's cattle. I have it on film. If anyone wants to see it, I'll be happy to send you a copy. So I don't think the local grassroots groups are paying for the signs. So I'm going to end my presentation and then we'll do question and answer with my quotes. I love my quotes. So, Gandhi. This is the Gandhi that lives up in Rochester, his grandfather. Earth provides enough for every man's need, but not every man's greed. Good luck with that one when you explain it to your kids and your grandkids. There's nothing wrong with making money on your property. A lot of the farmers have been doing that for a long time. But if it damages the property or the people living on it, there's a problem. I'll use Demick and Franklin Forks and Lennox in our area as an example. And this was Martin Luther King. In the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Let that one sink in for a minute. Edmund Burke said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. When you watch your neighbors going through what I've seen many times in many different communities, and nobody steps up to even ask them what they can do to help, I find that appalling. I'm trying to figure out what God the person bows their head to and gets on their knees. Maybe their God is their toaster oven or something, but I'm not talking about the God most people in here probably believe in. Now, Martin Luther King. This is my favorite. On some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? Make up your own mind. Research this. Don't believe either side. I hear the yap, yap, yap from the left that don't want it, and the yap, yap, yap from the right that say there's no problems. How about you come right up the middle, make up your own mind, because it's your future and your property they're talking about. It's not mine. Do I care if your water goes bad as a human being? Yes. Does it affect me if I'm down there and you're up here? Not really. That's not the issue. The issue is if you choose to let this come here and come to your property or your pooling unit, forced pooling by the way, there's a real good one. Find that one there in the rule book. Okay. Making your neighbor that's got a big property in the middle, you get sucked into his bad decision. And that's been on the books since 2005. If I was a real conservative here in New York State, I would have tried to overturn that a long time ago. 8 years on the books, guys. So your neighbor gets to make bad decisions and you fall in with it. So I'm going to end my presentation saying this, that there are good people on both sides. This is not an issue where we're supposed to be at war with each other. If this is good for us or individuals, it's good. If problems are happening with people and nobody is stepping up to help them, my choice is get out. Because I'll end with what I told Marty Bird, the Vice President of Chesapeake Land Acquisition, on the phone when he wondered why I had made my mind up that this was not going to be a good thing. I said, Marty, you don't treat people with respect. And when you signed them to a lease, they're not a partner, they're an indentured servant or a slave to you. We have to let them do their thing on the property once you sign it. And I said, Marty, if this was 100 years ago, and you were dealing with my grandfather or my great-grandfather, and they saw problems happening, and instead of fixing them or telling them how it's not going to happen again, they started running from you, they would have said, you have 30 minutes to pack your wagons up and head out of town. Or you can't throw this out. Yeah, we can. Because 100 years ago, where we live, right now, if I call the police, it's an hour if they come, and 30 minutes for water to come from the fire department. So even right now, today, we're kind of in charge of our own thing. Just remember that. It's your property, it's your future, it's your life, it's your property to pass to your children. Make a realistic decision based on the facts, and don't buy the hype on both sides. Come right up the middle and find out what's really going on, and ask questions. None of us mind you asking questions, but every time I ask the industry questions, they either don't want to answer or they run from it because their answer doesn't match what the reality is that's shown. Thank you very much.